Hello everyone. So this is a video where I'll be sharing my opinion, my perspectives on the nature of question paper asked in this year's 4 GS papers, GS 1, 2, 3 and 4, as well as the essay paper. Right, so we'll have 5 different videos that I'll be posting slowly over the time, starting with GS paper 1 today. And why do I make this video? For 2 reasons. One, aspirants who are about to give your mains in the next year, you need to actually, when you look at the question paper, right, you have to figure out which questions are difficult, why is it difficult, because those aspirants who appeared in mains this year, they may be sharing their opinion as well. So they'll say that the paper was extremely difficult, I could only handle 17 questions. But that's not really the case with all the aspirants, right? There are many aspirants who will nicely write answers for all the 20 questions as well. So you need to really get a realistic sense as to whether the question paper was really difficult, or is it you alone who's feeling it's difficult or not, so that when you have this realistic picture, you will be able to figure out that there are areas that you are actually weak in, right? You cannot be under the illusion that the paper was difficult while the paper might have actually been easier. And in my opinion, when I went through all the 3 question papers of 3 GS papers as well as the ethics paper, I felt all the papers were pretty easy this year, right? And I'll tell you, and let me justify to you why do I feel that the papers were easy. In fact, the title slide of this entire video, it says that it's the easy paper in the last few years, which is very true. And let me walk you through that. First, what do I consider as a difficult question? What is my standard to say that a particular question is of difficult type? If the question has unfamiliar terms and concepts, right? Say for example, in the year 2023 question paper, GS paper 1, this question was asked: why is southwest monsoon called Purvaya in Bhojpur region? How has this directional seasonal wind system influenced the cultural ethos of the region? Right? Somebody from South India may not be able to connect to anything that is asked in this question. First of all, where is Bhojpur would be a problem. What is the meaning of the word Purvaya? Maybe a North Indian may be able to interpret the word Purvaya, but a South Indian may not really know. He cannot even guess what Purvaya is. Right? And without even knowing where is Bhojpur region, probably they may know that it's in Bihar somewhere, but we do not know really what is the cultural ethos of that particular region, right? A question like this makes the question paper difficult. Do we have any such question this year? Not at all, not a single question of this type. Second, for a question to be labeled as difficult, in my opinion, if you feel that taking the question, extending an answer for that question beyond the first half page or 1 page itself becomes very, very challenging, then the question is a difficult question. Right? Say for example, analyze the salience of sect in Indian society vis-a-vis caste, region, religion. Right? We may be able to make a guess about it, but even when you write the answer, you will not really feel confident that you are writing the perfect answer. Right? So whenever in any answer, when you feel that confidence issue, I would say the question is of the difficult type. Okay? And the question like, what are aurora australis or aurora borealis? How are these triggered? Yes, some of the aspirants may have got these kind of terms perfectly right. They could have understood it as northern lights and southern lights, but not really many would have been able to interpret this question, right? So when you cannot even comprehend a particular question, then the question paper becomes difficult in nature. Do we have any such question this year? Not a single question. Every question is direct, straightforward. There is no problem in comprehending the questions, right? And if at all, for the first time, any new topic or any new idea is explored, right, which has nothing to do with previous year's questions, I would say that that becomes a reason to call a particular paper as difficult. Do we have any such question of this type? I really doubt so. Maybe at the max, maybe 1 question, and when I go through the questions of every subject one after the other, we'll get a picture of that, right? So in the first 4 categories, we do not have any question. So that's why I would put this entire paper as either easy or moderate. Just that there was 1 question which I would be putting it under the novel idea category. Apart from that, I don't see any question of the difficult type, right? And I don't even think it's of the novel idea. That 1 question, difficult question, that I'll be showing in the next slide here. If you see, only in geography I have brought 2 questions under the difficult type, right? So all the other questions are either easy or moderate. So 60% of your questions are very, very easy this year, and 6 questions, another 30% of the questions are of the moderate type, right? So the paper, in my opinion, is actually very easy, maybe moderate. But let me also caution you here. Simply just because the paper is easy or moderate, it doesn't mean that everybody can handle this paper equally well, right? That depends on two different skill set. Okay, so when I say a paper is easy or moderate, it only reflects the nature of questions asked. It doesn't reflect the scoreability of the paper. The scoreability is a different aspect. Scoreability is dependent upon these two aspects. How many of these questions are dependent upon pure content? If it's pure content based questions, most aspirants will be able to manage it well, because most aspirants, when they clear prelims, they become good with content, right? If there are more questions that are dependent upon your writing skills, those students who may not be really good with content but who have really good writing skills, they have a chance in cracking this exam, right? And then there could be certain questions which require you to have both these skills. So in my opinion, when I have analyzed all the questions, I would say that there are 12 questions asked in GS paper 1 which are purely content oriented. Your amazing writing skills, your aesthetics, your language proficiency, all of that actually is irrelevant to handle 12 questions. It's all about, are you aware, are you familiar, right? But then there are 6 questions. So in my opinion, somebody who had done a lot of hard work, right? Somebody who had dedicatedly prepared a lot of content, anticipating the difficult nature of questions that can be asked, factual type of questions that can be asked, they'll be able to perform very well in these 12 questions. All right. But then there are 6 other questions as well, which is a level playing ground among aspirants when it comes to the kind of quantum of content that you actually have. It doesn't matter whether somebody has put in efforts to read more or not, but how well can you deliver your ideas? How well can you narrate your ideas? In what orderly fashion can you put forward your thoughts? Those aspects will determine how well you handle the remaining 6 questions. Okay, and subject by subject as well, I feel this ratio of these distribution of the questions of these types actually differ across subjects. For example, in society, I would say both these skills are, there are 6 questions asked from society this year. 3 of them are dependent only upon the content that you have. But then there are 3 other questions which is purely dependent upon your writing skills. So if you are somebody with good writing skills, why don't you think on these lines that next year as well, your trump card would actually be to get more marks in society, right? Your creative, your imaginative writing skills can help you ace GS paper 1 because you are strong, you're going to perform really good with society. So try to capitalize on that, right? When it comes to history, there were 6 questions asked. 4 of them were dependent upon content oriented, pretty straightforward. No use of writing skills or differentiating writing ability will never play a role in these 4 questions. But then there are 2 questions which I'll show you where content alone is not going to help you. So in those 2 questions, it's those who can write well, they will be getting an edge in those areas. All right. In geography, out of 8 questions asked, 5 of them are simply content oriented. Simply by preparing with reference from PYQs, simply if you have prepared from very familiar area from NCRTs, just like plate tectonics, just that preparation can help you handle 5 out of 8 questions. But then there is always one question which is dependent on writing ability, and 2 other questions where a decent amount of both these skills are required. Okay, I would say that writing ability is more determinant in your success when it comes to handling society questions more than geography questions. History, I would say it comes somewhere in between the 2, right? So if you are an aspirant who is looking at this video wanting to gain some inputs as to how can I tune myself for the upcoming year's mains, if you find that you are in your first year of preparation or if you are in your second year of preparation, trust me, your content is not going to greatly improve. All you can do to prepare for the next year's mains is to make sure your regular reading is done. In addition to that, PYQs of mains from most areas are completed, plus your test series, right? This is all that you can hope for. Try to focus on strengthening your writing ability. So all those first timers, second attempt aspirants, Your trump card is in writing. Try to ace in society as much as possible, and history as well, right? Geography, just PYQs and tests, basic NCRTs. This is going to actually help you crack mains. It can even get you into IAS and top ranks as well. So that's the purpose of this analysis. This analysis is not to simply give you answers for all the 20 questions. That you can even get it by simply copying and pasting it in ChatGPT. You'll get the answers for those 20 questions. But a purpose of an analysis is to give you a sense of reality as to whatever the type of question paper happens to be, dependent upon your skills, how can you play it according to your skills and still you make it through the top ranks, right? This slide, I would say, is the important aspect of this analysis. All right. So when it comes to difficulty levels, I would say that only in geography we have 2 difficult questions. Rest of the questions are either of easy or moderate type, right? Why do I say that? Because there was not a single question where you cannot even understand the question. There was not a single question where you feel that you cannot stretch your content beyond the introduction or beyond the first page. No, you can always write it for 1.5 pages at least, right? And I don't even think there was any question where a new term was asked for the first time, right? That was also not the case. That's why difficult questions are very far and few, and even these 2 difficult questions from geography, when we start analyzing geography questions, you'll understand they fall in a mixed category of moderate and difficult. I simply did not know how to categorize them because they were not too difficult, but I wouldn't put them under moderate as well. They are somewhere in between. That's why there is no reason to even think that this year's paper is difficult or if it's moderate. Okay, if you feel it's difficult or moderate, means you have not studied well, you have not capitalized on your strength of writing maybe, right? Or you do not have the good writing skills and content as well. So any of those combinations could be the reason why you perceive it to be difficult or moderate. But when I went through the questions, all of them are doable. And trust me, all those who make it to the top ranks will not even leave a single question unattempted. And this is a paper where I think majority of the aspirants should not have left out any of the questions unattempted, because all of them are easy to comprehend, easy to begin with. Maybe the kind of rich value addition that you add across different questions may differ between the aspirants, right? So the first principle of a paper like this is you should have attempted all the questions. So time management is important. And so 6 questions at least. Okay, 6 questions, they will just help those people with good writing ability. Okay, so 6 questions would be like somewhere around 15 into 3, 45 plus 30, around 75 marks in this paper is actually going to be determined by whoever can write well. Okay, all right, so let's get into subject by subject, question by question analysis. So first, let's start with art and culture. Okay, so art and culture, there have been 3 questions, and in modern India there was 1, post-independence 1, and world history 1, bringing the total questions asked in history to 6 questions. All right, and if you see in art and culture, out of the 3 questions, 2 of them are very easy, simply because they are asked from a previous year question area, or they're asked from a very familiar area which most aspirants would be very good at, right? Salient features of Harappan architecture, right? You can talk about the different types of urban town planning, what all has gone into Harappan cities, right? The rectangular grid, utilitarian type of architecture that you find, and the importance given to hygiene and sanitary arrangements, right? And the coexistence of both workshops as well as dwelling units, right? Presence of a citadel complex, the presence of a bathing tank for ritualistic purpose. So the points are just innumerable. You will not face a dearth of points, a shortage of points in handling this question. And so is Akbar's religious syncretism. How is it visible in his religious policy, right? He was the one to abolish jizya. He was the one to come up with a new religion, new path, Deen Ilahi. And many aspects of Hindu elements were also incorporated in his architecture as well. In his complexes at Fatehpur Sikri, you find interplay between Rajput as well as Islamic traditions, right? So you see, just looking at the question, you can come up with 5 points minimum for both these questions, and that's why I put them under the easy category. simply because they are from very familiar area, or they are from often asked previous year question. Look at this question asked in 2014. To what extent has the urban planning and culture of Indus Valley civilization provided inputs to the present day urbanization? If any aspirant, even if you would not have history as your optional, let's say you are from political science background, just preparing for PYQs of history will help you handle this one question so easily, right? The only question which is slightly, there is a twist to the question. You should have understood that Chandela art form is represented in Khajuraho temples. If only you know this, getting this answer perfectly right is very easy. You should talk about all the sceneries that is depicted on the temple walls. You have sceneries depicting everyday life. You have processions that are depicted. You have intimacy between men and women. Sexual acts are very explicitly depicted, which shows the openness of the society, right? Or it could also indicate tantric influence in the adjacent areas. All right. So this is the idea that you'll have to actually bring in this answer, right? That's the question. Resilient vigor and breadth of life. It shows the vigor and breadth. It shows the acceptance of every sexual act in the society, right? So even this question is easy to interpret only if you can associate Chandelas with Khajuraho temples. If this link is got right, you will be able to write something. Okay, so I would say that art and culture, 3 questions were asked. 2 of them are pretty factual in nature. You only have to have prepared from PYQs, read your NCRTs properly, and I believe anybody who has gone, who attempts mains, they would have done that. That one question alone slightly difficult, but again, it doesn't fit into the category of incomprehensible type, right? And I believe at least 50% of those who are writing mains would have got this interpretation correct. They would have got this linkage right. And it is between these 50% where the actual competition lies. So I am very optimistic that this question would also come under easy or moderate type. There is no great challenge in handling this question. Alright, so art and culture is done. Let's move on to the history questions. And in history, I would say 3 questions were asked, out of which 2 of them are very easy questions. Okay. And you see, the weightage of modern India has come down because UPSC clearly understands that aspirants would have well prepared with modern India, because that's a part of your prelims preparation. So UPSC, why would it simply want to test you again and again with modern India? That's why the questions are asked from post-independence and world history, right? So, and both of them are easy questions. One is simply about French Revolution and its relevance to contemporary world. How has it disentangled religion and politics? So that's the basis of secular societies today, and that's the core objective of French Revolution. You can talk about that. The importance of liberty, democracy, how is it today? You can talk about it, right? And having a written constitution, okay, which clearly creates a mechanism for checks and balances. So you can talk about that. So it's a very imaginative question, easy. Anybody who would have attended to their lectures, if only you know how to write without any grammatical mistakes, handling this question is easy. It's not so difficult. And this question, to handle it, you simply should have read any book, either Bipin Chandra's India After Independence or Ramachandra Guha's India After Gandhi, right? If you have read any of these books, the first few chapters will give you the answer, but the answer is not found in one chapter. For example, how did consolidation happen in early phase of India's independence? Basically, the question talks about Nehruvian period. So in the Nehruvian period, how did consolidation happen with respect to polity? Right? We had states reorganization happening. We had the separate demand for a Naga state which was going there. We had the Jammu Kashmir problem. So all of these can be brought under the head of polity. Okay, and when it comes to international relations, you can talk about Nehru's initiative in Asian or Afro-Asian conference, Asian conference held at Bandung, and how Nehru was the tallest personality over there, right? How Nehru was able to avoid getting entangled in Cold War politics. These aspects, if you bring in, the answer is actually very well written. And you have to talk about economy, education, talk about all the institutions, IITs that were set up, talk about the first and the second 5-year plans, the focus on agriculture, focus on industrialization. It's a very simple question. All you need to do is address each one of these heads one after the other, stretch it for 2.5 pages, right? And even this question, nobody will make a mistake in interpreting this question. Even if you would not know anything about Jyotirao Phule's writings, still you can handle the question, because you know he was a social reformer who worked for the upliftment of the depressed classes, right? He was somebody who was a vocal activist against the domination of Brahmins, the Puna Brahmins, right? So he was a man for backward classes. He was a man for the Dalits. That's the question of almost all the subaltern classes discuss, right? So interpretation of the question is not challenging. The idea and the core content that you need to have can also be written for around 1 or 1.5 pages. Maybe stretching it beyond that could be difficult. If you have very specific ideas about Jyotirao Phule, then you can take it beyond the first 1.5 page, right? That's why even this is not moderate, even this is not difficult. I would rather put it under the easy or the moderate category. And that's why in history there is no difficult question that you actually find. Either the questions are all of the easy type, which are purely driven by content awareness, and these are not even hard content to come across. These are content which any aspirant usually learns in their course of PCM foundation course, or it could be mains classes. You do definitely learn about it, right? And only 2 questions, one from art and culture and other from modern India. These are slightly of the moderate type, and I'm very sure there are aspirants who would even handle this also perfectly. All right. Whereas in a few years you will find questions in art and culture being very difficult. Examine the importance of lion and bull figurines in Indian mythology, right? When such a question is asked for 2.5 pages, it becomes extremely difficult to handle, right? We don't focus as an art historian going into the significance of all these motifs, icons. We don't do that. That makes the paper difficult. This makes the paper easy, right? So this is the idea behind the nature of history questions asked as well as art and culture questions asked. Next we move on to the topic of society. In society, I would say that there were 5 easy questions out of the 6 questions asked, because as I told you, not a single question is difficult to interpret. Let's imagine if I ask you a term like manxiety, would you even know what that is? A term like donkey migration, do you know what that is? A term like demographic winter, which was asked last year, do you know what it is? These type of questions make the paper difficult, but fortunately or unfortunately, there is no such type of question at all among the 6 questions asked. So 5 questions are straightforward to interpret. They are all of the easy type. But even though it may be easy, there are at least 3 questions which are actually dependent upon the writing skills, right? Unlike history or geography, where content awareness becomes a priority, and this goes very true with those aspirants who are opting for sociology as optional. Only those aspirants who have a good writing ability, who have a creative writing ability, they are the type of aspirants who should even be preferring for sociology, right? If you cannot even write 1 page without grammatical mistakes, if you cannot even deliver your content without English issues, then you should not be choosing sociology. Maybe you have geography or history to choose from, right? So sociology as well as Indian society questions here, it gives a decisive advantage to those with good writing skills. And this year as well, 50% of the questions in sociology are dependent upon how well you can present your thoughts, right? Let me reiterate it again. There are no difficult questions in society. Every question can be clearly understood. Just that presenting and creating an edge between aspirants simply is not dependent only about the content. It also depends upon writing ability. Why do I say that? Look at these 2 questions. This is on globalization, and this is on globalization as well. There are 2 questions on globalization, right? And when you write an answer for these 2 questions, it looks very similar, and the type of the direction in which the 2 questions lead an aspirant to, that also talks about the type of answer you write in both the questions. As a reader, when you read both the questions, answers written, you will feel that the same ideas have been written. It infuses a sense of monotony. It brings in boredom to the reader. So how do you break this? How do you write an answer for these 2 questions, but without making it feel as if it's a repetition of the same ideas? That's why I say writing skills matter here. The creativity in your writing matters here. That's how you can score, because both the questions are from the same areas, right? So again, society questions as well, easy type, most of them, slightly of the moderate type, 2 of them, and 50% of the questions are simply based on how well you write. Okay, so look at the questions. Why do I say they are easy? How do smart cities in India address the issue of urban poverty and distributive justice? Anybody who has cleared prelims will know the components of smart cities, right? You have last mile connectivity, door to door, doorstep transportation facilities, and you have accessible infrastructure, right? You have paver blocks laid out, you have over bridges at intersections, right? And then you have affordable transportation, mass transportation like metro, railway systems. And then you have Wi-Fi facilities, you have parks for recreational facilities, right? These are the aspects of smart city. Now link it to address the issue of urban poverty and distributive justice, right? So you have to just connect those aspects, talk about how mass transportation system gives affordable transportation for those poor people who live in the outskirts of the cities. They can easily, with very cheap price, they can commute and they can enter into the center of the city where they find employment. Tell them how accessible Wi-Fi, right, helps them digitally connected. That helps them with GPay and such decentralized payment mechanisms, right? For that you need Wi-Fi facility, accessible internet facility, correct? So it's very simple. It's a creative answer that you have to write from the facts that you know. Nobody actually prepares exactly for this particular question. People prepare separately for a smart city idea. Aspirants separately prepare for how can poverty alleviation be done. Now your work is to link these two, right? And do you think globalization results in only an aggressive consumer culture? Justify your answer. Yes, globalization exposes you to multiple ideas, and it's a human nature to crave for new experience, right? Be it clothing, be it cinema, be it fashion, be it food, whatever it is, it's a human mindset. It's a nature of human curiosity to explore something new, right? And globalization just brings so many choices before us, so automatically it leads to some form of consumerism. But where does the consumerism stop depends upon the paying ability of the consumers, right? So you have to take it in this direction. In what all ways you see the savings of people actually have come down. Yes, globalization have also increased the amount of savings, because everybody now has an avenue to earn. There are gig work which unemployed people can do, right? Everybody can find some employment, but how much do they have left at the end of the day? Because they end up spending, because there are just so many temptations. There are so many ways to spend your money now, right? So this is an answer that can nicely be written if you can link some ideas from Indian economy, right? In many of the questions I find the silos, the compartments between the subjects are broken out, right? If you can link ideas as to how much of savings is there in Indian households today compared to, let's say, 20 years ago, right? You will be able to actually drive the message clearly in the minds of the reader that yes, globalization has led to an aggressive consumer culture. Okay, I feel best answers in UPSC are written by connecting across subjects, connecting across topics of the same subject, right? And that's how my answers used to be written as well, and that's how the nature of questions actually are. It breaks silos. Alright, and look at this question. Ethos of civil service in India stand for combination of professionalism and nationalistic consciousness. Nothing difficult in this question to understand. It simply means that as a civil servant, you have to have what is called professionalism. You have to have what is called as national consciousness, right? Which means that as a civil servant, you should not be posting any divisive messages which can spark unrest in the society, right? You cannot have orientation that is biased towards one segment of the society rather than the other, right? Your mindset should be very inclusive, right? And professionalism. What is professionalism? Punctuality, diligence to work, right? And efficiency is also professionalism. See, we are not talking about ethics here. Ethics means you can talk about integrity, you can talk about empathy and all of that. Professionalism is purely a functional attribute of a bureaucrat. So it talks about how efficient you are, how punctual and diligent you are at work, right? And how much of skill building do you actually involve in. So I would say this is a question which brings in ideas from governance, okay, which brings in ideas from society. I wouldn't say that this is a question that is linked from ethics questions. No. Ethics is more about moral attributes. Here it's more about your professional attributes. So it's more to do with governance. It's more to do with how well you understand the pluralistic needs of society, pluralistic nature of society. As a civil servant, you cannot simply exhibit your bias against Muslims if at all you happen to be a hardcore supporter of Hindutva, right? So such is what it means by nationalistic consciousness. You have to feel that every segment of the society is all a part of this nation, right? Your political orientation could be anything, but when it comes to understanding of society, you should understand the divergent nature of the society, the different needs of every segment of the society, and how as a bureaucrat you have a responsibility towards everybody, right? It's again a very creative, imaginative question. You will never find a similar type of question ever asked in any of the test series, never asked in any of the PYQs. For the first time you find such a question is being asked, but again, it's not hard to comprehend. We know what is the question expecting, we know how to take the answer forward, right? So that's why society easily manageable, nothing is difficult in this. Even the question on does tribal development in India center around two axes, those of displacement and rehabilitation. First of all, tribal issues is a subject that we study in different papers. In society you study, in governance you study, as well as in internal security. When you study about Naxalism, we tend to study about the causes of Naxalism, right? And in the course of that you get to understand how much of displacement has happened in tribal pockets in Odisha because of various developmental projects, right? So you're not scarce of points to write even for this question, okay? And this is the only question which I have brought it under moderate to difficult type. What is the question? Achieving sustainable growth with emphasis on environmental protection could come into conflict with poor people's needs in a country like India, right? This is the only question I have brought it under moderate to difficult. It's not even purely difficult because I can clearly understand the question. What does it say? It says that on one hand we have a lot of green activism going on in this country, right? We all want to protect and preserve environment, but in the cost of doing it we are actually pinching upon the livelihood of, let's say, tribals. We are pinching upon the livelihood of scheduled castes, because in the name of slum rehabilitation, in the name of city beautification, we demolish the homes of many of the slum dwellers. And who are they? They are scheduled castes, they are poor people. Similarly, in our quest to protect forests, we actually impede upon the livelihood of the tribals, right? So it is in this direction this question has to be written, not for 10 marks, it's a 15-mark question for 2.5 pages. So anybody can write something for this, but how well you substantiate with any facts, with any value additions, this is challenging. That's why I have brought it under moderate to difficult. You can start the answer, but you may not be able to write the perfect answer. That's still fine. This doesn't mean that you leave this question unattempted, right? So all 6 questions are actually well attempted, are easily attemptable questions. Now let's move on to geography. Now coming to the last area of geography, I find out of 8, 5 questions are of the easy type, simply because they are either from NCRTs or they are from previous year's questions. Alright, so look at this. How are climate change and sea level rise affecting the very existence of many island nations? Okay, there have been a lot of questions, lot of times a similar type of questions have been asked in the previous year's questions. Okay, not necessarily in GS paper 1, but there have been questions asked in GS paper 3 in the topic of disaster management. Often questions have been asked on the topic of environment. Questions have been asked in the past, right? You see here, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change has predicted a global sea level rise of about 1 meter. What would be its impact in India and other countries in the Indian Ocean region? It's the same question that is asked here. That's why this is an easy question. What are non-farm primary activities? How are these activities related to physiographic features in India? Very easy, simply because even this year in prelims there was a question asked on non-farm activities, whether it's susceptible to come under income tax or not, right? And anybody can make an intelligent guess. What are non-farm primary activity? It could be a coir extraction, it could be quarrying that you do, right? It could be maybe some kind of animal husbandry, right? Cattle rearing that is actually being done. And you have to talk about in what all areas such activities are prominent. How is it dependent upon the geography, local geography of that area? If you can relate these 2 aspects, your answer is attempted successfully, right? Not a very difficult question. You have to think commonsensical. Talk about non-agricultural activities, right? If you can think about them a few, 4 or 5, your answer is finished. Not a difficult question. Explain briefly the ecological and economic benefits of solar energy generation in India with examples. Very general answer and very often repeated theme in GS paper 3, where solar energy has been often beaten to the pulp in GS 3 previous year's questions. So aspirants who would have looked at PYQs would have got this answer right. What are tsunamis? We have direct PYQs from UPSC's GS paper 1 itself. Right? This is a question on tsunami. Okay, it's a 20, I think this is 2017 question on tsunamis. Okay, direct link with PYQs. And even the solar question, describe the benefits of deriving electrical energy from sunlight in contrast to conventional energy generation. What are the initiatives offered by government for this purpose? If you would have prepared some points for this PYQ, you could have handled this question on solar energy very easily with proper facts as well. Because if you have seen through PYQs, you would have definitely added facts and value addition to your content. So that's why I would say, and even the question on give a geographical explanation of distribution of oil offshore oil reserves of the world, it's simply a previous year question. Discuss the multidimensional implications of uneven distribution of mineral oil in the world. So it was a question asked in 2021. And in 2017, petroleum refineries are not necessarily located near to crude oil producing areas. Explain the implications. So both these questions have gone into the locational factors on crude oil, petroleum reserves. Simply preparing PYQ for that could have got 5 out of 8 questions are directly from previous year questions, either from GS paper 1 or from GS paper 3. That's why I say all these 5 questions are easy. And except for the solar energy based question, I think all other questions are content based. They are not even writing skill based. So any aspirant clearing prelims will handle these 5 questions very comfortably. Right? And then there is a question here which I brought under moderate category. Discuss changes in shape and size of continents and ocean basins due to tectonic movements. Even this is a direct topic on sea floor spreading, on mountain formation, right, on fault formations, rift valley formation. All of these are very familiar. You read this as a part of any normal geography textbook, right? And questions have been asked in the previous years. I think I have questions for that as well. What do you understand by the theory of continental drift? Discuss the prominent evidences in this support. This 2013 question is the answer for this particular question. That's why I would either bring it under easy or under moderate category. Even this is content based. Even this is PYQ based. This is standard textbook based. So 6 out of 8 questions are easy in geography. And these other two questions are at least easy to understand. They are not difficult at all to comprehend. There is no mistake that you'll do in comprehending the question. But writing a good answer for this question becomes difficult, because to write an answer for this question on AI, how that can be used for geographical information systems and for remote sensing techniques, you need some technical terminologies. You need to understand how map making actually works, right? You need to know how weather prediction works, how surveying works. It's only when you have the right technical jargons in place, you will be able to write a perfect answer for this question. That's why I have brought it under moderate or difficult category. Moderate because there is no problem in interpreting the question. Moderate because you can definitely write at least 1 to 1.5 pages for this question. But writing the perfect answer with the right data, right technical terms, not possible. Maybe for a few who would have already been lucky to come across some relevant information regarding this topic, may be able to prepare on this. But others, or somebody with computer science engineering knowledge, or somebody with geoinformatics engineering background, they may have some ideas on that. But for others, writing an answer for this is difficult. It's okay. It happens. And lastly, there's a question on discuss the distribution and density of population in the Ganga river basin with special reference to land, soil and water resources. Right? You can make an assumption of what this question is. Basically, it talks about Ganga river basin starting from Uttarakhand. It starts from Gaumukh, Gangotri, right? Then passes through Uttar Pradesh, goes through Bihar, then West Bengal. So all of these are where Ganga basin lies, right? And you have to have a somewhat adequate knowledge on the land types across different states, across different regions, and what is the population concentration in these areas, what is the economy of people in these areas, and Maybe what if the water gets contaminated in a few areas because of industrial activities, right? This is more of a question on economic geography, right? Geography optional students may write a wonderful answer for this question. Others may struggle to write the correct ideas for this. They can make a vague answer, but handling and coming up with the best answer is a problematic aspect here. So that's why I would say just these two questions, in my opinion, they come under the difficult category, because writing beyond the first 1 or 1.5 pages becomes really challenging. So I would say they are either moderate or difficult. So overall, the entire paper is easy. There isn't anything that you have to leave unattempted in the examination hall. And since at least 6 to 8 questions were dependent upon writing skills, how easily you can write, how speed you can pour out your ideas plays an important role in handling a question paper like this. This is a question paper that has a nature to consume time, because 6 to 8 questions on writing skills, so you have to think and write, you have to think and frame ideas, so it consumes some time, right? So the paper could have turned out to be lengthy, but that doesn't mean the paper was difficult. So I feel I have given enough ideas on my first impressions about this paper. So I'll follow it up with subsequent analysis on other GS papers as well. So I hope it was useful for you, and we'll meet soon in the next video. Thank you.